So we are picking up, we are going to be looking at herbivores today. And we said that herbivores are animals that are going to eat plants, which is what I have in front of me, this nice native plant salad. I've got some clover in here. And then I've also got some dandelion, which is kind of funny because not a lot of people think about eating clover and dandelion, do they? When you think of plants, you're probably thinking that you might go home and you might eat an apple, or maybe you're going to eat a spinach salad or an iceberg lettuce salad. But these types of plants here are going to be what a lot of our native wild herbivores are going to eat. Now, what I have done is I actually have compiled a wonderful slide. So we're going to pull up the slideshow. And on this slideshow, we are going to be able to see some different types of animals that like to eat plants more than just what I have here. So I'm going to share my screen real quick so that you guys get a chance to see it. All right. Wonderful. So I'm sharing my screen, and let me make sure that I get it to be full screen. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Wonderful. So we are checking out, like I said, the wild world of herbivores. And in this wild world of herbivores, we're going to be focusing when we look at our food chain. So this is what I've got here. I've got my food chain. So we've got our plants that we just looked at, right? And we said that plants, I know you've gotten this in a previous lesson, but plants make their own food. So they're going to get energy from the sun. They get that nice heat, that nice UV. And then they also get rain. So they're going to get rain from the sky, or they might pull water from the ground, or sometimes plants are really, really good and even pull water out of the air. Okay, then we have consumers. So consumers are going to be animals that eat plants or eat other animals. But the ones that we're going to be focusing on today are going to be first order consumers, which are herbivores. And they're considered first order consumers because they are the first animal on the food chain to be eating another. So now we know that we're going to be looking at our consumers or our herbivores, but one of the neat things about our primary consumers, so what I have here is I actually have an energy pyramid or a trophic level pyramid. And what this does is this shows you the amount of animals that you find at each level. So when we look at biomass, and biomass is essentially the amount of mass of a particular group. So producers, when I look at the amount of biomass of producers, basically that means that there are way more producers on this earth than there are any other group of animals. And as we go up our trophic pyramid, or as we go up our food chain from producers to first order consumers, second order consumers, up to tertiary consumers, we get decreasing biomass of animals, or less and less animals in that group. So our primary consumers are going to have a huge diversity and a large number of animals that fall into this group. Now, what's so cool about herbivores is that within this big group of herbivores, we have many different types of animals across the animal kingdom that fall into this category. So the first picture that I pulled up, what group of animals do you think this is? Who wants to take a guess?
Grasshopper, the cricket. You said what group?
Yep, you guys are doing really good at identifying the animals, but can you tell me what group of animals they belong to?
Herbivores.
They are herbivores, very good, because we're looking at different types of herbivores.
Oh, there's one more word. Oh, first consumer. I had somebody say first consumers and also consumers.
Oh, you guys are 100% correct. So let's think when we start to classify animals, when we look at things like grasshoppers, I've got a caterpillar right here, and these are termites down here. These are all animals that eat plants, but these are types of insects, right? So we know about insects. We know there's tons of insects. And this is one of the big groups of first order consumers that we find are herbivores. And so all of these insects right here are going to be animals that eat plants. Now, to get really specific, this one over here, this is so cool. This is a monarch butterfly in its larval form. And so the larval form of a butterfly would be a caterpillar, right? And what you can see is this caterpillar is munching away. He's a very hungry caterpillar, and he is munching away on this leaf. Oftentimes they like to eat milkweed. We plant dill around here. Then what I've got is I've got my grasshopper. That's what this guy is right here. My grasshopper is another herbivorous type of insect. And down here, I've got termites. These are probably not as much fun if your parents find them in your house, because they like to eat one of the most difficult parts of a plant to eat. And that would be that rigid woody structure. So we have insects that are herbivores. Then we also have fish that are herbivores. So what I have here is I've got 3 different types of fish that live in 3 totally different habitats. Up here, who recognizes this one? What movie might you have seen this animal in?
Finding Dory.
Finding Nemo or Finding Dory, exactly. So this is a blue tang, and this blue tang is actually an herbivore. There are lots of types of fish that eat either algae. Sometimes they eat it off of rocks. Sometimes they eat it directly from the plant. Or what's crazy is sometimes they will actually nip at other fish's scales, and they will eat the algae growing off other fish's scales. Over here, what I've got may look familiar if you have a fish tank. This would be a Plakio algae eater. And so this is a type of fish that also likes to eat plants, but they specialize in algae, which is a special type of underwater plant. Then down here, this is what's called a grass carp. These are actually an Asian species, so they come from halfway across the world, and they're actually really important because what they do is we oftentimes put them in ponds so that they can control the amount of algae or the amount of seaweed that's growing in a particular pond. Because believe it or not, if you have too much plants, it makes it hard to swim for the animals, and then it also makes it hard for animals to get lots of oxygen out of the water. So 3 really cool animals that are examples of fish and fish herbivores. We also have herbivorous animals that exist as amphibians. Now this one's kind of weird because amphibians as adults are all carnivores, which means they eat meat. But when they're in their larval form or when they're babies, they live underwater. And I'm sure you guys know the name of this, right? What do we call this?
Tadpole.
A tadpole, exactly. And when amphibians are in their larval form or tadpoles, they live underwater and they eat plants. So that's why you can see all these missing pieces of the plants right here. That's because on the underside of a tadpole's mouth, they have this rigid little scrapey surface, almost like a tongue. It's almost like they've got teeth on their tongue, and they use that rigid surface to scrape away parts of the plant. So unlike those insects that we saw that have pinchers to pinch off pieces of the plant, or unlike that fish that we saw that would maybe use teeth to scrape algae, this guy actually uses like a little rigid surface on his tongue. So cool. Then we have animals in the reptile family. So here I've actually got a marine iguana who dives under the water and then eats all the algae and the plants growing on the rocks. We have some types of lizards, like this is a species called a Eurymastix that lives in the desert, and he eats all sorts of plant material. And then down here, we have one of my favorite groups of animals. We have a tortoise, and all tortoises are really special because tortoises tend to be very herbivorous, meaning that they eat that plant material, like we said. Moving along into our mammals, there are so many groups of mammals, and we're actually going to specialize a little bit more on mammals and some of the unique characteristics they have in order to consume plants. But here I have a colobus monkey you can see eating plants. I have an elephant who's eating plants. zebra, and then I have our friendly neighborhood squirrel that's down here eating plants. So many different groups of mammals that like to eat plants across all different groups. And then moving up into our final group of animals, we also have tons of birds that like to eat plants. And similar to mammals, they have different ways of eating those plants. So some birds, like this lorikeet here, they specialize in eating fruit. And so they have these nice big bills, and those bills are going to help them to crush or open up the seed so that they can get to that fruit. And then what also is really neat, you may not be able to see it really well here, but they've got a tongue that acts almost like a finger, and that tongue's got grooves on it. And they use that tongue to scrape apart that fruit so that they can eat it. That tongue also helps them to get that juice, like fruit juice. We like fruit juice, right? It tastes really good. And there's a lot of nutrition that comes in that fruit juice. So these parrots use their tongues and their beaks to extract the fruit pulp, and then also to extract some of those juices. Coming over here to the cardinal, we have a seed-eating bird. So you'll frequently see them around your bird feeder. And if you look at his beak, it looks a little bit different than our parrot's beak, doesn't it? Yeah, the cardinal's beak, believe it or not, is really, really strong. You may not think about it, but if you ever talk to anybody that studies birds and traps them and has to put bands on them so we can mark them, they will tell you that it is not fun to be bitten by a cardinal. They will draw blood and they will leave a bruise on you because they have a really, really strong beak. And that really, really strong beak is used to crush the outside of seeds. So I want you to think about it. Have you ever eaten sunflower seeds before?
Yes.
Someone? Yeah, right? They're hard to crack with your fingers, aren't they? A lot of times, what do? You take that sunflower seed and you put it in your mouth and you crack it, don't you? With your teeth. Now imagine that you are this big. Think about how tiny these birds are, and they're able to crack them. They're able to crack those seeds because they've got that nice, powerful beak that they use to crack that seed. And then coming down here is probably one of the goofiest looking birds in the world, especially if you watch them run. They look oh so silly. I've got an ostrich. And ostriches, which is really funny because it's a really big bird, are also herbivorous. And what they do is you'll see him, he's got his mouth open. And what he does is he comes around to the tops of these plants right here, which is usually grass. And a lot of times the tops of the grass has grass seeds, which tends to have more nutrition, or it's more calorie packed than the leafy area of the grass itself. What they do is they come around to the tops of it and they pick the tops of the grass off. And that's where they get their nutrition. Now, like I said, we're going to focus a little bit more on some mammals and then some other types of animals. Now, what's crazy is when you look at plants. So right here, I've got a couple close-ups of some plants. So here's a nice close-up of a leaf. And then here is a close-up. We're going to get even smaller. We're going to look at a microscopic view of plant cells. And what's crazy is plant cells have different types of tissue. So what about you? Do you have different tissue in your body? Not like blow your nose tissue, right? But I want you to think about it. You have muscles, don't you? Yeah? Do your muscles have a different job than your bones? Yeah. Your bones are used for structure, right? So it keeps your body nice and standing upright. Your muscles are used for movement, aren't they? Yeah. And then you also have different things in your body, like your stomach. What does your stomach do?
Digest your food.
It digests your food, right? Well, plants also have tissue inside of their body that helps do these different types of things. And in plants, one of the types of tissue that they have is something called cellulose. And I'm going to go back. I'm going to stop my share for just a quick second here, and we're going to look at my type of plant right here. Now, what I've got is I've actually got a piece of an azalea, and you may be kind of familiar with that because right now they're blooming. Have you seen them? They have a lot of really pretty pink blooms outside, and then white ones. Yeah, I see some people shaking their head. Yes. Now, if you look really close at it, what do you see on the outside? right here on my stem. What do you think that is?
Rats, algae.
Maybe algae. Those are good guesses. It's bark, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, like trees have bark. Okay. Now, I have a question for you. Have any of you ever tried to eat tree bark before?
No. Yes.
Oh, I got a hand. Yay, someone did. I know my daughter does. Okay, so was it kind of hard to chew?
Yes.
Yeah, it was kind of hard to chew, right? Well, that's because bark is composed of a lot of cellulose, which cellulose is a really, really strong part of the plant. And that strong tissue for the plant is responsible for holding it up and giving it structure. Okay. And what that means is that's kind of hard to digest. Now, there are a lot of foods that we eat that have a lot of cellulose in them. Okay. So now I'm going to get really gross for a second, and we're going to talk about the bathroom, right? So much fun to talk about. Okay. So now there are some foods that you eat that they go in, and when they come out, they look about the same, don't they? Right? Yeah, I know you guys have examined that before. That just means that you're healthy, right? So what about corn? Have you ever eaten corn and then seen what it looks like when it comes back out? What's it look like? I see someone laughing in the front. What's it look like? Corn, right? It looks the same. It looks just like those kernel of corns that you shoved in your mouth. Or what about like black beans or yeah, like, or some type of peas, right? It looks the same. Well, we eat them and we do get some vitamins and some nutrients from it and maybe some protein, but it's really hard to digest. That's why it comes out looking the same as it went in. It's because it's so hard to digest. Our bodies can't do a good job of it. Now, we're not herbivores, are we? What are we?
Omnivores.
Omnivores, right? So we eat lots of different things, right? We eat meat, we eat plants, we eat all sorts of things. So we're okay because we get nutrition from other sources too. Now, if you're an herbivore, that means you only eat plants, right? So that means that you have to have a better way of digesting that plant material, right? Because you have to get all of your energy and all of your nutrition from that plant. You can't rely on eating meat or eating a different type of fruit. So a lot of animals have developed special ways of digesting or getting nutrients out of that plant. And these are things that we don't have in our body. So I'm going to do a screen share again. And we're going to look at some different types of animals and some ways that we can digest our food. Whoops. There we go. The first one. So what I have here, what kind of animal is this?
A horse.
A horse, of course. Exactly. I heard someone's on the same wavelength as me. This would be a horse. Now, if we look at the guts of a horse, what we would find is the guts of a horse, and this is actually not drawn to scale, so it's a lot smaller than you think. Or sorry, it's a lot of these parts of the body are a lot longer. Like, for example, the small intestine is way larger. This is not drawn to scale. But if we look at the intestines of a horse, what we find is it's really, really, really long. And it's really, really long because the longer we make that track, the more time this horse has the ability to extract nutrients out of it. And now horses, they're pretty good at getting energy out of what they're eating, but they're not as great as my next animal. And so in a lot of our ungulates, and ungulate is a big fancy word for hoofed animal. So anytime you see a hoofed animal, you can put it into an ungulate category. Now this particular type of ungulate, the way we further divide them is by the number of toes they have. It sounds really funny, but you have two major groups. You have even-toed and odd-toed. And all of your odd-toed ungulates, so that would be like this horse, he's got one toe, right? That's an odd number. So he's an odd-toed ungulate. They have very similar stomachs or very similar digestive tracts. Our even-toed ungulates are really, really efficient. at getting all of the nutrition possible out of their food. And so what I've got here is I've got the digestive tract of a sheep, okay? And a sheep is another even-toed ungulate. And this guy's stomach or entire system here looks very similar to whoever made this patty right here. Can anybody guess who made this pie?
A
A
cow.
cow, exactly. This is a cow pie, right? Probably not as tasty as your apple pies. I would recommend actually highly against eating these types of pies, no matter what your older brother or sister has told you. So this is a cow pie right here. I want you to look at this cow pie, all right? Now, compare it to our horse poop. So what do you see in this horse poop?
Hay, grass.
Hay and grass, right? Exactly. That's because even though our horse is good at getting nutrition out of it, he's not as good at getting it as the cow. So if we come over here to the cow, can you see little pieces of stuff?
Oh, no.
Not really, right? And if you've ever walked through a cow field and stepped in cow poo, I do that a lot. I'm pretty sure I did that last week too. So did my daughter. We cleaned her shoes very thoroughly. But cow poo is really consistent. It's really even. And that's because they have a 4-chambered stomach system in which they can digest all of that food. Now, herbivores, especially mammal herbivores, have got some specialized ways of doing that other than just their stomachs or their stomach system. Some of the ways that herbivores is with their teeth. You guys see these big honking teeth? Mammals have special teeth, and these special teeth, what they do is they're a grinding surface. So it's kind of like when you see people milling corn. That's why you can eat bread, and when you eat bread, it doesn't come out looking like the same oats or wheats. Like if you had whole grain, that's essentially what they're doing. They're doing the work of a mill, like what we do to make our flours and our cornmeal. So they've got all these teeth that have grinding surfaces, and those grinding surfaces take that plant material and grind it up and make it way, way smaller. Now I've got some other my horsey friend, but it's actually not a horse. This would be a close cousin of a horse with black and white stripes. What would this be?
Zebra.
Zebra, exactly. This is a zebra skull. And if we look at this skull again, you'll notice his teeth. So zebra have got incisors in the front, just like these, that they use to nip at the grass. Okay. And then they've got a big grinding surface like this right here. Now, one thing you might notice that's missing in the middle. All right, if you look at your teeth, you'll notice you got some teeth right there, right? Those are your meat teeth. What is the zebra missing?
Meat.
Meat teeth, because what does he eat?
Grass.
Grass, plants, exactly. He's an herbivore. So he doesn't need all those extra big teeth. And then I've got animals, and we'll actually do another screen share because I'm going to show you some of our animals that like to eat. So I'm going to do a share real quick with you guys. And we are going to see an herbivore munching real quick. So this first herbivore that we're going to see munching, look at him go. He doesn't use those incisors in the front, but what he does is he actually uses his tongue in the front to grab a hold of his food. And then after that, he uses, you can see that he's got some incisors up front, but what's crazy, I'm sorry, can you guys see it?
No, ma'am, we can see like the files, but it's not playing the video.
Oh no. Let's see. Oh no. Let's see if I can share it real quick. I'm gonna try this again. Ah, nope, that's not what I meant to do. Go back. I'm so sorry. Let me see if I can get this to share. There we go. Let's try this. How's this working? Oh wait, let me hit the share. What about now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, good deal. All right, so let me go back to the beginning and I'm going to show you my goat who's got a little bit different teeth than that zebra that we saw earlier. Ready? Set? Go! So if you look, you'll see that he's got incisors right. Whoop, let's go back a little bit. So you can see that he's got incisors right here on the bottom that he uses to help nip maybe at some grass, but then he's also got this nice tongue that he's using like a suction cup. And then what's crazy is if you look up top, unlike our zebra and unlike our horse that we saw, he doesn't have any top teeth. How crazy is that? Look at him go. So our goat is going to be a two-toed ungulate. All right, and then I have one more video to share with you today, and then we'll meet some live critters. Let's see if I can get this to work right. So we will then, oh, I closed it. That's why it disappeared. So we will get my next type of animal that likes to eat plants is also going to be another mammal, but it's a really special type of mammal. This type of mammal comes all the way from down under. So here you can see, what kind of animal is this? This is a red kangaroo. And so you can see here, he's eating one of his favorite treats. He is actually eating some banana. And then if you look at him, he's actually got similar teeth to that goat, where he's got incisors on the bottom, but he actually doesn't have any, on the top. And then he also doesn't have any canines back here. So some really, really cool animals. Now I'm going to go back to my screen share for just another minute or two because we're going to see some other ways that animals are able to digest plants. Oop, let me exit full screen real quick. So in addition to a lot of our animals having really special guts, like long gut tracts, like we saw with our cow that's got multiple sections of the stomach, we also have animals that have got special bacteria inside of their guts. So things like cows and horses and many other groups of animals, including some species of reptiles, and then also some species like rabbits, they have got special bacteria inside of their stomachs. We call this a symbiotic relationship because the cow eats food and provides food for our bacteria and gives the bacteria a safe place to live. Then we have bacteria living inside of the gut, and they have a pretty sweet deal because they have a nice protected area to live in. And then they get to eat free food. It's a pretty great deal for both animals here, both organisms. So cows and many other animals have specialized gut bacteria, just like one of this first animals that we're going to see today. Now, this first animal that I'm going to see is a critter that does eat lots of plants. We have seen his cousins before. You may have one of these, and it's very relevant because does anybody know what holiday is coming up? You may get a basket, you know, someone may hide some eggs around your house.
Easter.
Easter, exactly. So what I've brought is the Easter bunny, right? He made this, boys and girls, is Bugs. This is Bugs Bunny. Haha, get it? Now, Bugs here, being a rabbit, we know that he's an herbivore, right? We'll see if he'll eat some for you. He may be a little bit nervous, but I brought some of his favorite. I brought some dandelion. And Bugs here, as a rabbit, he does have some special bacteria inside of his stomach or inside of his gut. And what that bacteria does is it allows him to digest his food. Okay? Now, here's the crazy part. Where does that bacteria come from? Anybody know? Anybody want to take a guess? What he eats. Okay, you're right. He, as a baby, this rabbit would actually get that special bacteria from what he eats. But now here's the crazy part. This is the part that you're going to love. Again, I'm going to go back to the bathroom. We're going to get kind of gross here. So the bacteria that this bunny gets actually comes from his parents' poop. Oh, yeah, I see one good face out there. I was expecting that from everybody. Yeah. So the bacteria that he gets comes from his parents' poop. So when rabbits go to the bathroom, they actually have two different types of poop. You have a cecal pellet, C-E-C-A-L, cecal. And when those come out, they're actually kind of greenish looking. And they've got that good gut bacteria in it. And what the babies will do is the babies will actually eat some of it. And when they eat it, it puts the special bacteria back into their stomachs so that they can survive. That's how, I don't know if any of you have ever come across baby rabbits before. Sometimes, like if you find them in the wild, like it's springtime right now, which means that we have lots of baby animals that maybe are misplaced, or like a kitty cat brings them home. But rabbits are one of the hardest to take care of. And that's because if you don't have another mama rabbit, or you don't have another rabbit to give them that cecal pellet, they can't get that bacteria in their tummies, and then they can't digest that food. So that's why they become really hard to take care of. Now, even as adults, rabbits will make that cecal pellet that I was talking about. So they'll poop it out and it'll be greenish looking. And then you know what the rabbit does? Eats it. So the rabbits will eat their own cecal pellets, and it helps to put the bacteria back in their stomachs. And then when they poop it out, eventually it becomes a fecal pellet, F-E-C-A-L. And that's when you get that like brown rabbit poop right there. Sounds pretty gross, but it's the way Mother Nature works. Also, do you guys remember that reptile we saw? That big reptile that we saw that I said likes to eat underwater algae and plants? So that iguana is kind of similar. They actually rely on their parents' gut bacteria. So sometimes in the wild, what you'll find is you'll find baby iguanas running around, and they'll find iguana poop on the ground and they'll just eat it. Sounds gross, but they need that important bacteria inside of their guts to be able to survive. So I'm going to put, we'll see if we can't get Bugs to eat a little bit more for us. Now, Bugs also has some special teeth in order to be able to eat that plant material. But his teeth are going to look a little bit different from that horse. He's got really, really big incisors, where he's got 2 sets of incisors on him. No, I don't think Bugs is honey. Bugs is not hungry right now. He maybe has some like stage fright and doesn't want to eat in front of us. That's okay. We'll give him some salad a little bit later on. So you guys want to say bye to Bugs?
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. But Bugs here, Bugs also has those teeth in the very, very front right there, those incisors, and he doesn't have those canines. And what's really cool about rabbits, the way you can tell a rabbit skull from a squirrel skull is if you pick up the skull and you look at these front 2 teeth. If you look at behind them in the back, behind these front 2 teeth, rabbits have a second set of incisors, which is really, really cool. Now, my last animal that we're going to meet today is one of my favorite types of herbivore. This, boys and girls, is a tortoise, exactly. So I'm going to kind of angle my camera down and we're going to see if we can get Stanley to eat. Now, unlike, oh, Stanley looks a little hungry. He's pretty excited. He's got a whole plate of salad just for him. Now, Stanley, unlike my mammals, he has a really good way of getting his plant material. He, on the outside of his face, has got something called a beak. So kind of like a bird, he has got a specialized beak that he uses to crunch that lettuce or that salad. And I don't know, can you guys hear it? I can hear it over here. But you can hear that fresh crunch. Like you know you're getting fresh veggies because they just came from outside. And so what he does is he uses his beak and he makes little like tears or indentions into it. And then what he does is he uses his front feet to help pull it apart. So he doesn't really have very good table manners here because he's using his hands at the table or he's using his feet at the table. And then he's got that bright pink tongue. So once he uses that beak to chomp down, he uses that bright pink tongue to kind of scoop that lettuce and put it into the back of his mouth. And we'll see, maybe he'll like some clover. You wouldn't think so, but even tortoises are really picky. So they're picky about the particular types of greens that they like to eat, and they have favorites. And what's funny is that if you give them a whole plate of different types of plants, they will go through and they will pick out the plant they like the best and then go back and eat the rest of them. Very cool. Well, while Stanley is eating, do you guys have questions for me about herbivores?
Anybody have any questions for today?
No,
I don't think we had any questions today, Miss Jackie.
Wonderful. Well, I thank you guys so much for tuning in, and we look forward to seeing you again next week.
Thank you.
Bye, boys and girls.
Bye.
Bye, Stanley.